Coming up, the New York Football Giants get the critical win that they needed, knocking off division rival Washington on their home turf. We break down the big performance on both sides of the football, the breakout performance from one Kayvon Thibodeaux, and how the New York Football Giants have secured, potentially, almost quite there, their playoff berth in what has been a renaissance season for Big Blue. Yes, friends. It is OGP, the One Giant Podcast, where we are your hosts. Over here, Adam Armbrecht. Over there, Andrew Makowitz. We dispense with the pleasantries. Why? Because the New York Football Giants go out and get the job done, Andy, beating Washington in Washington, taking care of the Commanders, getting to 8-5-1, 20-12. A lot of big sequences to talk about, but from a high level, the Giants did what they needed to do, get a critical win to dramatically increase their chances to make the playoffs.
And you know what? We're going to get into the game, but Adam, it is just so much better as a fan when the team wins. It's like, you're like, oh, I'll stick around for the post game. Let's hear everyone talk so great about our team. It's like, oh, wait, there's press conferences. Hold on. I know it's midnight, but I'm going to stay up a little bit longer. Maybe there's some wrinkles I didn't know about. Meanwhile, if the team gets blown out, you can't shut the TV off faster and just go to sleep and avoid talk show sports or even listening to us in the morning, right?
Gotta say, well, you should always listen. Yeah, but you should always. We are the salve. We are the balm that eases those pains after a loss. And then after a win, we are the people that hoist you up upon our shoulders like eagle's wings and soar higher than we ever thought we could. But you're right. And by the way, Sunday Night Football, you forget how late it is. Like after after it's all said and done, and you've been watching some of the other games throughout the day. I personally decided that Christmas and the whole holiday season kind of started this weekend for me. I pulled a bit of an Andrew Makowitz, man. I got out there a little bit. World Cup soccer was happening on Sunday morning. I watched that final at 10 a.m. Going to be clear with you here. I was out at a bar where they do serve alcohol. So it was a long day for yours truly, but it was capped off in the perfect way with the Giants getting this victory. We said coming in this episode, I think it's very, very easy to start by saying the New York Football Giants defense is the first, second, and maybe third bullet point on how they won this game. Obviously, they're responsible for providing points, and they're also responsible for providing critical stops late in this one. And yes, we will acknowledge about whether or not there could have been some laundry on the field at the back end of this. But on the defensive side, especially early in this game, one Kayvon Thibodeaux, we've been kind of, waiting for this arrival game. And he shows up in a big way in several key categories, including a strip sack fumble, recover for the touchdown, seemingly giving you the best version of deja vu from 2 weeks ago.
I mean, Kayvon Thibodeaux was an absolute wrecking. He was a one-man wrecking crew for a little while there. It was like, it didn't matter what play was happening. He was going to be involved, whether it's stop the run option, even on plays where they're pitching the ball to the outside, he pushed back the tight end, Logan Thomas, into the player to blow up the play. He was all over the field. I mean, Adam, we talk about it before. It's like when your starting safety is the one that leads you in tackles, it means that a lot of plays are getting to the secondary. It's not necessarily a good thing. Kayvon Thibodeaux leading the team in tackles is a very good thing for the Giants, right?
Oh, 100%. Like, to your point, this is, it's funny too, because by the way, like this is easily the best game of his career, his young career, and it's only going to get better. There are even still moments inside of this game where that responsibility of you need to protect the backside of a play so that Taylor Heineke can't leak out. There's still things he can clean up. And I mean that as a positive because the game could be even stronger for him. But when you go inside the defensive side, and you're talking about 12 total tackles, 9 solo, 1 sack, 3 for a loss, the fumble recovery, the touchdown. It's just like, this is like putting up, to me, it's almost like the equivalent of putting up like a triple-double kind of stat line in the NBA. We were like, boy, you really touched every key category in this game. And his imprint was all over it. I don't think that it's any doubt that having Leonard Williams back out there, having Azeez Ojulari out there for the last couple of weeks now, obviously Dexter Lawrence has been having a really good game. this is one of those first times I think in a while here, because actually I watched this with man, haven't said the name in a while. Friend of the show, friend of the person. Pizza Mike was over watching this one with me. And he was asking me, I was like, how do you feel about Wink Martindale to this point of the season? You know, where are you on him? And I said, man, it's really hard. And we know, right? The secondary's been banged up. They don't have any linebackers, guys across the front in and out. And this was like that game where you go, hey, for the first time in 6-7 weeks, you've only had this 2 or 3 game sample size where all these guys have been available, or even 3/4 of them have been available. And you saw what's capable, right? You saw what is possible in a game like this, where if you allow it, and they had their moments, they're going to be able to move the ball on you. They're going to be able to take their big shots, right? The secondary was very vulnerable in this one, but that defensive front was responsible for holding Washington to 12 points, for keeping enough pressure there where they just couldn't get their rhythm with consistency on a series-to-series basis.
You know, they asked Kayvon Thibodeaux, how do you feel? How do you like primetime? And he said, primetime likes me. That was his quote beforehand. And it's
nice.
Just, you know, he is built for this, Adam. He really is. He wanted the big stage. He wanted the limelight. He told the coaches he wanted to come to New York. And it's for moments like last night. And you know what's funny is the first Washington Commanders game, my bet of the week was the New York Giants defense to score a touchdown. Because if you remember, Adam, I said Taylor Heineke holds the ball longer than almost every other quarterback in the league. And also their offensive line is not world beaters. So, you mentioned how similar it was to the last game where Kayvon Thibodeaux comes in, blindside, sack. The ball could have come out against the Commanders to win that game almost in the identical spot that this one happened. Yep. We just got fortunate enough where the ball pops out, Kayvon's there, and the touchdown happens. This is what happens when you look at these things that happen consistently to Taylor Heineke. He had 2 fumbles on the day because he holds the ball too long trying to make plays. And that's something that we always crucified Daniel Jones for, was like, get the ball out early and often so that you can avoid some of these fumbles. It was almost a role reversal of the 2 teams this time, where the Giants were the ones getting pressure and Washington didn't know how to cope with it.
And it's so funny, too, because you're 100% right. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago, thinking about what could be the big moment. And by the way, go back and look at the schedule. When the New York Football Giants defense is getting turnovers, and winning the turnover battle is always a big motivator of having a chance to win games. But being able to do that in this game and it's go back previous to kind of this losing streak they've been on. It was all about an interception here, a forced fumble there. Those key moments of change field position, maybe given defensive touchdowns, and really move the needle. And when you go inside the numbers, Heineke threw for 250, had a touchdown. Remember, 2 weeks ago, 2 touchdowns. Had the critical, though, fumble here. Doesn't hold on to it at the goal line. The running game was still there. 12 for 89 for Robinson. Total of 159 yards on the ground for the Washington Commanders. So that remains a weakness for the New York Football Giants defense. The difference here, again, was just, I could even make the case. We always talk about this in some of these games where you go, something that the Giants have done so well and really did well early in the season was stay the course with your game plan, right? Don't give up on what's going to work for you. In a world, the Commanders could have just kept pounding the ball because that kept being there for them, those big chunk plays. Doesn't matter, though. You're disruptive. You make some key plays, obviously, spearheaded by Kayvon Thibodeaux. And I do want to make sure we're going to bounce maybe back and forth a couple of times here. But early in this game, just to highlight how we end up with the Giants being in a real position to, you think, force Washington to feel like they need to chase it a little bit, maybe get out of what their game script was, and allow the Giants to play from ahead in this one. So we have the punt from the exchange punts to start the game. Washington picks up the field goal. It's a punt from the Giants, pin them down, Thibodeaux with the big play, and then you get up 7-3, punt from Washington, and this is really a big one for me here was the Giants starting from their own 3-yard line and going on the longest drive of the season, 18 plays, 97 yards, 8 minutes and 35 seconds, and putting the team up. Again, critical, punch it in, get the touchdown here. It ends up being Saquon Barkley could have moonwalked his way in with how wide open they created some lanes for him. I thought that was, we were talking a little bit in the pre-show here. We're going to talk more about Daniel Jones coming up because I feel like Saquon Barkley is a bit of the feature of the offensive side of the ball. But as you digest things more, listen, a 97-play drive over 8.5 minutes. We've seen Daniel Jones do this. It's been a while since the team has been able to let him maybe do this. This is getting back to that 6-1 start of the season where ball in your hand, play smart, be methodical, make the right reads, make quick passes. Again, use Saquon Barkley. I want to touch on a key player in the wide receiving core here, but that is to me the critical drive of this game, obviously, because you're on the shadow of your goal line. You could easily be punting it and giving Washington the ball at midfield. Instead, up 2 scores really changes the dynamic of the game.
Yeah, it felt like there were like 4 different big plays, maybe 4 to 5 different circumstances
Yeah,
that
key
really
moments.
led to.
Yep.
Yeah, but to your point, obviously the Kayvon Thibodeaux one is the one that is the highlight, leads the show. Getting 7 points from the defense puts you in a position to win, knowing that points are going to be at a premium in this matchup. You mentioned this drive, Adam. 97 yards is impressive. 9 minutes almost off the clock when the Giants desperately need to get the defense off the field. We talk about how Washington wants to win the time of possession. They run the football pretty effectively. The Giants don't stop the run very, very often, early or often. And so for me, this was huge for every piece of the team. Like the defense gets to rest, but you mentioned Saquon Barkley. I think overall he was the later in the game. We'll talk about some of the spin moves. You saw exactly why people love watching him play, and when he's out there, he's ready to perform at a high level. That drive did feel like it was Daniel Jones. I believe he went 10 of 12. And the thing that I noticed
just, by the way, I'm just in the background scanning the drive log, and I was like 7 of 8, and it is 10 of 12 on that drive. And that drive does include, not to jump in for a second, that includes a critical decision when they make the choice to go for it on 4th and 9. We're going to get to him in a second. I want to talk about Saquon, but that includes also that moment as well, right? Which as we move through the week here, at least for tomorrow too, we'll talk about some of the coaching decisions and strategy, but continue with that drive and Saquon.
No, and that drive, it's just methodical, as you mentioned. 7 yards, 8 yards. Look, I mean, let's be honest. Daniel Jones didn't have a completion over 15 yards today. So like every single ball had to be all about timing. It had to, and that was one big piece of this during that drive. The announcer said it. I think everyone that was watching the game was like, Daniel Jones is being decisive, and he's got zip on the ball today. Like he was flinging those balls out. And credit to who we're going to talk about in a second, Richie James, for being able to get open, be a big reason why this Giants team won. But during that drive, Adam, 4th and 9 at the Commanders' 35-yard line, under Joe Judge, that's a punt. That is a punt 27 out of 27 times under Joe Judge.
Okay,
and
come on.
No, but what I'm saying is
Don't mention his name.
This team and the Giants over the last couple of weeks had kind of been sitting back saying, let's play not to lose. And I think the aggressive nature of Joe Shane, Brian Daboll, and this new coaching staff said, let's get back to what we were doing a little bit earlier, be more aggressive. Making that play leads to the touchdown by Saquon Barkley. Without that aggressive nature on 4th and 9, the Giants don't get that touchdown. They may not score another offensive touchdown the rest of the game. So I think early they wanted to set the tone. That's like, we're going to be aggressive and try to win this football game. And it led to the statement drive by the offense in the first half.
And I think too that, in that regard, on that drive, you're coming off of Kayvon Thibodeaux's strip fumble recovery touchdown. Then your defense also gets the punt on the next series for Washington, right? So I think too, like it's, just from a high level, that's a moment in the game where whatever your game script maybe look like, you kind of have this feeling, right? Defense is playing at a high level. You're getting some pressure here. If we can have a sustained drive here, if we can get towards halftime, knowing we also get the ball to start the second half, however that plays out. But in the moment, you're thinking, we may have a really critical chance here to go up 2 full scores and put some pressure on. Now, Washington ends up getting back and they miss a 2-point conversion and it's all a mess, et cetera, et cetera. And this thing kind of lingers around, 14-9 for hours inside of this game. But you're right. In that moment, 4th and 9 is not a cakewalk. And we always talk about where you are in the field and what's the risk reward of going for it if you turn it over. Again, I think how the defense played over the first 2 quarters of this game really made it possible for Brian Daboll and the offense to say, hey, we feel pretty bullish that we're giving up some chunk plays. The receivers are making some okay, but we think our front is starting to get into a little bit of a groove here in this one. We can take this risk. They get rewarded for it. And a big part of getting rewarded for it is obviously the work of Saquon Barkley. He sprinkled in that one, used a bit more in the receiving game that we kind of been, crying for all year. I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't love the way they were trying to get him into the passing game because those little flicks, on the line of scrimmage to one side or the other, several hold your breath moments where, they can get tipped, they can get disrupted, whatever it may be. but 5 for 33 in the receiving game, which is obviously just a nice little kind of cherry on top in this one. Barkley goes, it's only 87 yards on 18 carries, has the touchdown, obviously, that caps off that drive there. By the way, just 10 for 35 as well for Daniel Jones, to throw that into what is always, you have to consider that a part of the total. For me, that late game sequence, you talk about getting back to earlier in the season. All of a sudden, with Nick Gates playing at left guard alongside Andrew Thomas, you have Feliciano in the middle there. It's Glowinski. It's Evan Neal, who had his moments in this one, as we know, as a rookie, and playing against Montez Sweat because they were going to pick their poison and stay away from Thomas. 3 straight runs, 10-yard, 12-yard, 10-yard. When you can do that in a critical moment of the game against the defensive front in the middle that has been stout at times for Washington, I thought that was as impressive as anything they accomplished in this game, and as important to what they're going to need to do in the coming weeks here, having this offensive line get a little bit back to that. Early in the game, beautiful move when Saquon Barkley gets on the outside and his one foot just kind of glides across the field to freeze the defender, gets to the edge, picks up chunks yards, right? Has the little spin move where it just kind of rumbles forward. But I thought that those plays there were so indicative of what the line was doing early in the season, and they hadn't been able to get back to that. Critical to be able to do it late in this game and really put this one on ice.
I mean, he really did.
Sorry, put this one on ice
fresh.
was a little bit of an overstatement, but help move this one in the direction because it did come down to the defense again.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt, right, Adam? There was nothing, no drama at the end of the game.
Never doubt in my mind, boys.
Never felt that. No, it did feel. Listen, when Saquon Barkley scored the touchdown, it did feel like, okay, we have this game by the horns. We're not gonna pull an Indianapolis Colts here and just melt in the middle of this whole thing. Like, we are well coached. We understand time, distance, circumstance, all of those things. And the Giants executed that. They needed those runs from Saquon Barkley. You could feel the game like being, kind of being in the balance a little bit, right? Where, Washington was just about to go in and then they're about to kick a field goal and then we challenge a play and we get the fumble. But it felt like, it felt like if Washington comes back and either takes the lead or ties it up, like, they have all the momentum and they're probably going to win this game. The defense stood up when they needed to, got that huge fumble from Heineke, and they basically turned to Saquon Barkley and said, we need you to start salting away the clock. We need 3, 4, 5 minutes of sustained action here. And the only way we get that is you being Saquon Barkley. And he was able to deliver that. And the offensive line, to your point, they have had their struggles. They looked horrific against the Commanders the first time out. This time, the coaching staff said, we need you to be effective in the run game. We will make sure to throw shorter passes for Daniel Jones. Just be effective in the run game. We're not going to put you in situations to fail. And the offensive line did their job. They really did.
So we're obviously going to talk about the playoffs. We understand that that's where this is all headed. And we all know here, right? If you're here, we knew when the Giants win this game, it really moves the needle significantly in the direction of them being able to make the playoffs, though it is not locked up yet. They're still going to have work to do here. The one thing, so I'm not even being critical about this, but I will bring it up just because I wanted to make sure that I re-highlighted there that sequence late in this one was on a drive where it was 12 yards for Barkley off the left guard, up the middle for 15, up the middle for 14, then for 3, Daniel Jones for 7, and then a 1-yard run for Barkley. You start to get into these timeouts. There's some 3-yard little runs there. Here's the one thing that I did want to bring up about this. So the 3rd and 6 is the short pass to Darius Slayton out there in the flat off the left side there. I don't hate the idea of passing the ball there, but I do find it fascinating that, like, in this game where that's obviously, again, it pushes it to an 8-point game. It takes it from being a touchdown wins for the Commanders versus a touchdown and then a 2-point conversion will get you the tie. They're 4th and 7 at the 32. It ends up being a 50-yard field goal. Now, I was sitting here watching with Mike saying, hey, the guy now, I think at this point, is 6 of 7 from 50 plus. Mike pointed out, he's like, but he missed that one from 40 something. I was like, but that wasn't plus 50. If it's plus 50, then Gano is your guy. In today's NFL, a 50-plus yard field goal is not as, kind of lump in your throat moment as you might think. And also, I was just curious because they go for it on that 4th and 9 in the first half. You're at the 32-yard line. Again, I think and agree it's the right move to get that 8-point lead, which is a big difference even than, say, 7 if you thought that it was going to be a tieable game just on a touchdown and a field goal or, an extra point. But I wouldn't have hated them being aggressive there. Like, I don't mind the pass play. In the moment, this is the way I thought about it. I don't mind the pass play, but I would have preferred, because he actually lost a yard on that, I would have preferred the take the shot play there. Go for the jugular on 3rd and 6, because you're in your field goal range. You're comfortable there to have Gano kick. So show me something. Just give me the rip. Give me the over the middle play. Like you said, nothing over 15 yards for Daniel Jones. Give me that moment that just says, guess what? Game's over. Like, you know what? Thanks. And by the way, you're coming down to the 2-minute warning. You don't even have to score at that point, potentially. You're going to be able to bleed that clock, even kick a field goal later, have it be 30 seconds left for the Washington Commanders. Do you not care because ultimately the Giants win the game? Or would you have been bullish about the idea if Dable was like, hey, let's go here in this spot, 32, 33 yard line?
As a fan, I always like when the team is aggressive and they say, let's go try to win this game instead of not lose it. However, in that exact moment, I 100% agree with what the Giants were trying to do, because they were trying to accomplish a couple things. One, they were kind of already in Gano's field goal range, right? So you're already like, all right, we kind of have this. Let's just not screw this up. And the second thing is there's 2 minutes and 14 seconds left. You want to make sure that you have an inbounds play that continues to make the clock run regardless of what you decide to do. Right?
So then why not the run though?
Well,
that's my only thing about it. It's like, this is like the half pregnant moment, right? You're going to throw a passing play here, and maybe in their mind, now, by the way, maybe they have this thing drawn up where you go, hey, if this breaks right, Darius Slayton could be going down the sideline, right? Like there's probably like a 12% chance that play goes to the house when they design it that way, right?
Yes.
Now, when he gets tackled for a 1-yard loss, you go, I don't love it, but so there's probably that kind of thing there. And maybe that's kind of my thing is like, dude, just let Saquon punch it. There's a world where Saquon just goes and gets you another 12 yards and this game is over, right?
Yes. So in that situation, obviously, I don't think the Darius Slayton -1 yard pass was like the first read in the progression tree. Like,
No.
if that's the case, then I'm totally with you. Like, maybe
Right,
Kafka, let's tighten it up a little bit. But obviously, he was looking for a couple different passes, and he said, one, I can't take a sack. No matter what, I cannot take a sack in this situation. Right. Two, the ball has to come out. If I'm already thinking that I've had the ball for a while, it's got to go. And so he threw it out to Slayton, see if your guy can make a play. Honestly, Adam, it was 3rd and 6. I felt like the Giants were trying to go for it. Just the read wasn't there. And so make the safe play. Just don't do anything foolish. And the Giants end up walking away knowing that you have a Pro Bowl kicker kicking a 50-yarder. Makes it an 8-point game. You could sit back and say a lot needs to go right from here on out for the Commanders to even have a shot to tie us. Never mind win the game. And so I kind of was okay with the conservativeness in that moment.
Okay, so just very quickly, want to highlight Richie James. I said this off podcast with you. We said it at the time. The idea, we all disagreed with the idea of Adoree Jackson being put back there. We really vocalized it after he got injured, obviously. But the idea that fans were so quick to dumpster Richie James, who, remember, before Wan'Dale Robinson, when he first got hurt in the first game of the season, it was Richie James that stepped in and provided a consistent option for Daniel Jones on a week-to-week basis. He usually caught about 4 balls a game. And wouldn't you know it, in this game, he caught 4 passes for 42 yards, led the team in both of those categories. The long was 15. Isaiah Hodgins did have a 19-yard reception as a long in the game for Daniel Jones. And that was the critical, inside of those 4 catches, the critical 4th down, we're going to go for it, was Richie James finding the pocket, settling down, making himself available, being beyond the sticks, and making that critical catch. I just think, again, we know the wide receiver core may not be perfect. It feels like there's some consistency developing here now that Hodgins has been available week in and week out. Slayton's obviously been one of the more consistent from a showing up and being able to play every Sunday. He was a critical player in this game, right? Daniel Bellinger has a quiet one. Changed his visor, by the way, from tinted to clear in this game. Like, probably still trying to figure some of that stuff out. So there are all these kind of moments that are happening inside of this game. Richie James, I think, deserves a lot of credit for consistently showing up and, in a lot of ways, coming back from obviously being put in the doghouse to, in some way, shape, or form, finds a way to make some critical plays for the Giants here. Obviously, we also have to get to the closing sequences of this one.
Yeah, he had a good special teams play, too, where it felt like the ball was going to be backed up, and he was able to creep down the sideline, gain about 20, 25 yards for the Giants. That was good situational awareness. He was close to another one where he was thinking about picking it up, and you could tell he was like, this is a little risky. I'm going to let it go. It ended up getting inside the Giants' 5-yard line, which wasn't great. But that's the thing. The Giants were were making sure that they executed, be in the right spot, do the right things, don't turn the ball over, and then you put yourself in this position to win. And it takes that sequence at the end of the game, Adam, where the Giants get the field goal, they kick off to the Commanders. You're like, all right, 2 minutes left, let's just hold them, and bang, they get a 43-yard kick return right out of the gate to put them in prime position to move down the field. And Adam, it felt like they got down the field so quickly that the clock didn't even seem to be an issue, right? Like it felt like they were inside our 30-yard line before 30 seconds had gone off the clock.
Yeah, all very much available for them. They have the kickoff there, as you say. You end up with so they end up with 43-yard return coming in there. Then Heineke gets Samuel. He gets pushed out. Darnay Holmes in coverage there. Then it's Lance Thomas, moves the ball down the field. Then he ends up with that big Dotson play, right? That ends up being the launch play down the middle of the field. I guess it was McLeod in coverage. I thought that had been someone else, but McLeod got picked on a little bit.
On a previous one that they threw deep. There was
Pinnock's the one over the middle of the dots. Okay, yeah. So there you go. So they end up, to your point, they make these big chunk plays, and guess what? You have Dotson, and you have McLaurin, you have weapons, so you kind of expect this could be the case. And for everything the Giants defense accomplished throughout the game, here it comes down to it. Now, I'm just going to say this objectively because they covered it in the post game, and you go back and you watch it, and it's real. When you line, and they said it in the broadcast as well. When you line up on the line of scrimmage as a wide receiver, you flick your finger out and point to the referee to make sure that you're good to go. It was referenced. McLaurin said it. He said the referee acknowledged it. And then you watch it on the tape. It all occurred. He points to him. The referee says he's short. He takes a shuffle forward. They snap the ball, and he immediately throws a flag for not being on the line of scrimmage, right? Now, again, some Giants fans, and I get it, any fan of the game would say, remember 2 weeks ago, the Giants got jobbed a handful of times. This is the NFL universe coming back into focus. I'll say, okay, great. I don't care. I'm taking the win. You prefer it if it's on a clean play. Now, that one kind of gets buried because on the final play of the game, again, a lot of jockeying, etc. I get it. I like physical games. Darnay Holmes, who is known kind of every single week that he plays this season to get called for holding penalties and pass interference, he grabs him, he holds him, he mounts him, and he mugs him. And guess what? They call it an incomplete. The Giants win the football game. They take the knee. It's all good. Like, I don't care. I was amazed. Maybe it's just one of those things of like, hey, sometimes you're going to need to get a lucky break or a missed call, etc. And it does feel like overall in this game, the Giants deserved the win. I was fascinated by those last two plays in this game because it very much felt like they could have had a new set of downs from the 1 inch.
It felt like we went from, okay, they're going to go in here, they're going to score. Now we have to take a stand on the 2-point conversion. And if we don't get that, Daniel Jones will have a minute to try to lead the ball down the field. I hadn't even considered the fact that we were going to stop them on fourth. Like, it was so
my idea was like stop them on the 2-point conversion. Like I was already surrendering the touchdown mentally.
That's exactly in my mind how it went. And then McLaurin gets the penalty, which it's a cheap illegal motion thing, or not on the line, not set. It's like, you know what? I've seen a bunch of Giants plays where it's third down and a critical thing, and they call a pick play on like a guy that's just running down the field. Like I've seen too many of these that go against the Giants where I'm not going to be apologetic about it. Should it have been pass interference against Darnay Holmes? Sure. Could it? Well, I mean, would the Giants still have won the game? Probably. I mean, they still have to get the 2-point conversion. The Giants still get the ball with a minute back. It wasn't like if they scored that ball, there was no time left, and like the Giants were going to lose the game. So
if anything, it's the Robinson going in on the McLaurin penalty is the more glaring one because the touchdown had been gotten. Right.
Yes, exactly. And so, listen,
that's life, baby. That's life, baby.
I'm not going to be apologetic about it. Giants have gotten some bad bounces in some other games. This one, we finally got a call or two that went our way, and I'm going to be fine with it. To your point, the Giants deserved to win this game. There were plenty of times where Kayvon Thibodeaux was being held on almost every single play. They missed a Daniel Jones face mask that would have been 15 yards for the Giants, where they would have gotten a field goal. There's a million things that you go back and forth on. It's just so glaring because it's in the last minute of the game, but it's like, I don't know, maybe be set on the line. I can't control that. You can control that. Giants walk away with the victory.
And at the end of the day, my friends, to your point, the NFL is fickle in that way. Guys get held. Offensive linemen are allowed to hold a lot of people on the inside a lot of the times. Like, there's such these weird, murky margins around this stuff. But at the very least, it was fascinating and certainly a little bit gut-wrenching there in those last couple of moments, but the Giants hold on and they get the win. So just to clarify where things stand, you have the Buccaneers losing, who cares, whatever. But the Giants are now in the 6th seed here. Washington still remains in the 7th, 8-5-1, 7-6-1. And then obviously the on-the-bubble teams, 2 important teams to watch, the Seattle Seahawks and the Detroit Lions. Why are the Giants not clear and fully into the playoffs? Because either of those 2 teams getting to 9 wins at least makes it interesting. The Giants need that 9th win to secure it. And by doing that, you push those teams to saying you have to then win out and get to 10-7. And then you could start to shuffle this board a little bit here. And even then, potentially, the Giants could still maybe find themselves, though we can't dream on the Dallas Cowboys, dumpstering themselves down the stretch here.
Yeah, so the key thing at the end of the day is the Giants went from being a 50% chance to make the playoffs, and now depending on whichever statistical analysis you're using, anywhere between 88 and 93% to make the playoffs. Yeah. It is a tremendous jump. The Giants would have been down to 22% chance to make the playoffs had they lost to the Commanders. It is a huge, it was the game of the season. They built it up like that, and the Giants came to play. Offense did just enough. The defense was clearly the side of the ball where you can really kind of hang your hat on their performance this week. But hey, Adam, like you said, we're looking towards the playoffs. We've got a good opportunity, but as you mentioned, we need one more win, and obviously we'll break that down over the next couple of days. Where do we see that win? It could be coming this weekend against the Vikings. There's a bunch of different things we're going to have to discuss.
Fascinating having had the Colts and the Vikings just have played, so we kind of get the sample size over our next 2 opponents and what that could look like. Listen, winning ways matter. Getting yourself back on track down the stretch of the season matters. We'll start to break that down, as Andy said. Lots still to look at from this game, the positives and what can maybe be building blocks here for the home stretch here of the season as the Giants look to make those playoffs and secure that wild card spot. You can, of course, find us on YouTube, subscribe, follow us, pushing towards over 2,000 subscribers. Love to do that. Maybe by Christmas. That's a little present for Andy and I from you, the loyal Big Blue fans. Get the podcast feed wherever you get those needs fulfilled. And as Andy would want, need, and nay, demand the people know.
As always, let's go Big Blue.